Yeah, she was like, are you trying to drop me? Are you trying to drop me? I'm like, no.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our guest lecturer, Miss Gillian Ward, and the owner of Boneyard, Barbell, and CrossFit Emerald Isle, Mr. Jeremy White, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your weekend and sharing it with us. We really do appreciate your support by being here. That being said, it is my distinct honor to introduce Miss Gillian Ward. So she is a global competitor. She's competed in 5 sports professionally. Among them are CrossFit, where she took 3rd place in the CrossFit Games. She is an International Federation of Bodybuilders women's physique professional. She is actually returning to the professional stage in just under 6 weeks at the Ben Weider Naturals. She's competed in Strongman, Super League, where she was the world champion of Super League. You'll have to Google that one. But I think really, in addition to being the strong body, what really sets her apart is the strong mind. So she is the former director of nutrition for Barbell Logic Online Coaching, and she is the owner and founder of Gillian Ward Fitness LLC, which is a strength conditioning, nutrition, and consulting company, and it has been great to be a client of hers. So she has also recently been named one of the world's all-time greatest, one of the 15 all-time greatest multi-sport athletes. So that was Barbell magazine. So again, it's my distinct honor to introduce my strength and conditioning coach, my nutritionist, my wife, and my best friend, Miss Gillian Ward.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking everybody for being here today. I'm going to try to hold it together. I think some of you may know we lost our bulldog Lucy earlier this week. So a little bit of a tough time, and I have something that you would call diet brain. So right now I am just under 6 weeks away from competing in a bodybuilding competition, and I am on a very strict diet, which you will come to understand some of the challenges of that, including the position that I am in right now. So I'm actually going to start by asking a few questions to get a gauge of who I have in the room. Show of hands. How many of you are actively trying to change your body composition? So what I mean by that, changing body composition, and let's not see it in terms of gaining weight, losing weight. How many of you are trying to either put on muscle or lose body fat or some magical combination of both?
Magical combination.
Okay. How many of you feel like you're doing a really good job of that right now? Okay, so that is really why we are here today. I am here to tell you that there is no one way. There is no best way of doing things. There is no best diet. What we are going to find out today is what is best for you and works for you at that time in your life. And I'm going to show you guys how to get there. So when we think of diet, most everybody thinks of something extremely restrictive, right? What do we think of when we think of diet? What do we think of?
No salad dressing.
No salad dressing. What else? What do you think of when you think of diet? No carbs. So we also generally think of weight loss. How many of you, when you think of a diet, think of very restrictive, very low calorie, temporary, and weight loss? That is generally what we think of. It doesn't have to be that way. Is anybody in here actively trying to gain weight? Okay, so that is awesome, and we are going to address both sides of that today. So every diet works and no diet works. Every diet works if you follow it. Do we all agree with that? If you follow a diet, the diet is going to work, and it's because overall the diet is going to restrict something and you're going to end up eating less. But a diet also makes the assumption that you only eat for the purpose of fueling your body. How often do you hear, food is fuel, we need to eat for fuel, like you're somehow a bad person if you have attachment to food, other than it being just fuel? The truth of the matter is we eat for a variety of reasons, fuel being just one of them. We eat for emotional reasons, we eat socially, we eat culturally. There are so many other reasons that we eat food other than to fuel our body. And that's part of the reason while why following a diet is so extremely challenging, because it dismisses the reality of what we're looking at. The other thing is that we all have baggage when it comes to our thoughts about food. You ever know how a bad habit is very hard to break with anything, right? You would rather work with somebody that is untrained. Imagine you were playing a musical instrument or teaching somebody how to do power clean or anything else, and they have all of these bad habits. Bad habits are really hard to break. So imagine that we all come to this together having some kind of baggage. We all grew up in a household that had different ideas of what foods were, what was good for you, what was bad for you. I know at the time that I grew up in the 70s, what the diet phases were at the time, and my mom drank tons of Tab, and saccharin was used, and there were certain ideas, and at the time, there was a lot of single food diets. Whether it was a vegetable soup diet, I don't know if this is ringing a bell for anybody, or the popcorn diet. So again, the thing about diets is that they all restrict something. But just understanding that the reason why a diet is so hard to follow is it's such a departure from the reality of how you exist. So when it comes to dieting, what is important? There are two factors. So I'm going to simplify everything for you. Everything that I tell you today, you already know. It is common sense, and I'm going to teach you how to trust it and design a program for yourself. Two factors in a diet. There is quantity of your intake, measured in calories, and then there is quality of food. So any diet we look at comes down to those things. So let's start with quantity. The reason any of these diets work for weight loss or weight gain is they are restricting quantity, either by limiting the amount of the food or by limiting food groups. For instance, we see all of these low-carb diets, whether it's keto or carnivore. Guess what? The same thing existed 50 years ago when it was Atkins. So we're not really seeing anything new. Those of us that have been doing this long enough see all of this repeat. And what they're doing is overall restricting the quantity of food. So again, quantity is calories first, and then quantity of macros, meaning a balanced diet. And I'm going to keep the actual super sciencey stuff relatively simple today. So carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and obviously we need fiber. Whether we like it or not, is anybody in here right now following a very low carb diet? Anybody doing keto or carnivore, anything like that? No, that makes me happy to hear. But our body's preferred fuel source is carbohydrate. There is no denying that that's what we prefer to use as fuel. If we are a performance athlete, which most everybody in here trains and works out, we need carbohydrate. So we want to look at overall quantity of food. How much do we need? What is the right amount that we need in order to be able to start to lose weight? And what is the right amount if we want to put on quality weight? And by quality weight, I mean putting on primarily muscle mass and not gaining a whole bunch of body fat. And then the other factor is the quality of our food. Quality matters. About 10 years ago, it was very, very trendy to do if it fits your macros. Well, if I could make this work, then I could eat anything I want as long as I can make it work. The truth of the matter is that is not an effective strategy. The other reason why that doesn't work is if we choose very poor food quality, we get a whole lot less food. So you end up breaking your diet. So for instance, in terms of figuring out food quality, we're looking at mostly whole foods. So a whole food, simplifying it at its base, is a food generally one ingredient. A potato is a potato, broccoli is broccoli, chicken is actual chicken. So how far do we come from a potato to a greasy French fry to potato chips? What is the difference between grilling a chicken breast and going through McDonald's drive-thru and getting chicken McNuggets? So we want to look at the overall quality of our food. The other thing is, as you guys know, and the lecture is not going to be political in any way or anything, but we have a bunch of stuff in our food supply that we don't want in there. And if we could stay with more whole foods, we're going to get away from some of that. So when you're looking for quality of food, we want to look at single ingredient foods. When we're looking at a food label, we want as few ingredients as we could see. And another way to easily identify it is shelf life. When foods are highly preserved, we've all heard the Twinkie story or the McDonald's sandwich that survives 30 years in the back seat of someone's car. We want things that spoil. We want things that mold. We want to look for things. There's an exception. Does anybody know what an exception is of something that occurs in nature that does not spoil? Honey. So honey is an exception to that. But other than that, what we really want to be looking at is for things that have a relatively short shelf life that you can't open a package 6 years later and eat. So again, does that make sense to everybody? The quantity and quality drive everything. Okay. So why is succeeding so hard? How many of you have lost weight when you've wanted to lose weight? It's not losing it, it's that we regain and re-lose over and over and over again. Because we could stick to something for a short period of time, but it doesn't speak to us in here, and it doesn't go with our lifestyle. So the problem when you choose a diet is that you take yourself out of regular life. You're like, I could only eat this, I can't have that, I can't go out to eat. And you take a break from all of those things and follow this diet to the point that maybe you get your result, maybe you don't get your result, and then you're absolutely sick of it. So today we're going to talk about a way to go forward to get the results that you are looking for and then to be able to maintain those results. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, so in terms of wanting to lose weight, and we'll talk about how to figure this out, we want to roughly eat about 10% less than our needs, which means we need to know our needs. And this is a pitfall that everybody falls into. It's like, I can get there faster. Well, that backfires. So what I mean by that is if you're at maintenance at 2,000 calories a day and you're starting a deficit for fat loss, it makes sense to eat 1,800 calories a day. However, that's not what we do. We choose the diet that's 1,200, thinking that we're getting there faster. The reason that backfires, more than one reason. One, if you go that far below, you're going to sacrifice very hard-earned lean muscle tissue. So you're going to give up the good stuff, and nobody wants to give up the good stuff. The other reason is you are going to be ravenously hungry. You're going to train your body to eat less. And how long are you going to sustain that? So we're going to use the 10% rule for either gaining or losing. Same thing occurs in a situation Ed is looking to put on muscle mass. I don't want to double his calories. I don't want to make Ed fat. So I'm not going to take him from eating 2,400 calories a day to eating 4,000 calories a day. I might take him from 2,400 to 2,700 calories. So does that make sense? And we've all done these super low calorie things. You do it for 3 days and you're like, I am done with it. So to talk to you a little bit about how I coach nutrition. So outside of strength training, primarily what I do for a living is coach nutrition. And one of the things I use as a coach is a model that my husband and I actually came up with called the CAT model. Which stands for consequences, accountability, and trust. How aggressive you are with your diet often has to do with consequences. So what I mean by that, you have a health scare, you had a heart attack. Okay, guess what? Your wife is like, you can't have red meat, you can't have egg yolks, none of this anymore. The consequences are high. For me, I am about to, in 5 weeks and 6 days, going to get on stage in a rhinestone bikini in front of the world. I have high consequences. So, it's not if I cheat on my diet, there is a price to pay. So you could be more aggressive with somebody with a higher level of consequences. The other thing is accountability. The hardest part about starting a nutrition plan is accountability. Is it enough to be accountable to yourself? So some of you that have been following me over the past 3 months or so know that I have been sharing my journey on social media and YouTube as I prepare for a bodybuilding competition. The reason I am doing that is to raise my accountability, because sometimes it's just not enough to be accountable to myself. So it is important to have a support network, whether that network is a coach, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend that you check in on with. So you guys have an awesome program of accountability, and they get very, very good results. So if you are setting out on a nutrition plan, the first thing I tell my clients to do is tell the people in their lives what their goals are, how important it is to them, and what your expectations are of those people. I expect this of you. If I go to grab this out of the cabinet, I want you to tell me this. What's very interesting is there have been times that I've also set down this path and not done it because my consequences were lower. And my husband will also say to me, am I your husband in this situation that just wants you to be happy? Am I your coach? Like, what am I? So that needs to be, you guys could all relate to that. Like, as your husband, I'm letting you eat the cookies. Do you want me to let you eat the cookies? Do you not want me to let you eat the cookies? So be clear with that. And I'm not going to pitch here, but if you don't have that person in your life that is going to be that for you, that is what I do. And that's all I'm going to, in terms of my coaching, that's all I'm going to say. So the last piece of that model is trust. It is trusting yourself and trusting the process. And what I mean by that is very often we start out on a plan and we get sidetracked because someone else is getting better results. Oh, this person's doing this person's doing keto, he's not eating carbs, and that worked so well. So the truth is we don't know the rest of the story, what's for somebody else, and trust what you are doing. It is about consistency and sustaining the path. So that is sort of the global approach to the coaching model. Now, how do we start this? It's kind of giving you an overview, but where do you start yourself? And you start with where you are currently at. So the best thing to do is to keep a food log of what you are doing for 3 to 5 days or more. Don't change anything. What we need to look at is your habits, patterns, and behaviors, because this is more behavioral than anything else. Sometimes I have people do it in pictures. Sometimes I have people write it down. But where you don't want to do it is in a tracker, and I'm going to tell you why. Trackers only work if you are truthful with them and accurate. If you are using MyFitnessPal, you might pull up 25 different calories and protein grams for 5 ounces of chicken. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one that fits best for you. And did you actually weigh your chicken or did you guesstimate it? So that's why, especially during this, unless you are accurately going to put that food on a food scale and do everything right, you want to do this either in pictures or in dialogue. So what you want to do is get an idea of your overall habits and behaviors. Everything goes on it. We also want to see who, what, when, where, and why. And what do I mean by that? Are there people that you engage in poor food behaviors with? Is there somebody that you go out to and you like to indulge in a big plate of nachos? When are you eating? You know, maybe you're going too long without eating at a certain time of day and then overeating because of it. One of the big keys is why. We all eat for very different reasons. Boredom is a big reason. Stress is a big reason. Sometimes it is just literally mindless snacking and habit. So we have an afternoon snack habit because it's just what we do. And I'll tell you, before doing the bodybuilding prep, we had an afternoon cocktail habit. So habits habits are often very hard to break. But what you're starting to do is collecting data on yourself and taking ownership of the process. So what we're going to look at is a food log over the period of 3 to 5 days. And you have to ask yourself, am I gaining weight doing this? Am I losing, or am I maintaining? And ideally, most of us in life, unless we're chasing something, are probably maintaining. That is going to give us a starting point for where you're at. So what is it that I'm currently doing? Am I maintaining my body weight? Where do you go from there? So I call it triage. What is going to jump out at you is like, all right, you know, where is like the sucking chest wound? What about what you see is the area that you are going wrong? So I'll tell you, our diet has always been very similar. There are 2 things that change for us when we're on point and when we're not. One of them is alcohol consumption, and the other one is sugary desserts at night. So if I looked at my diet, I'd be like, well, I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. I always cook a certain way for dinner. Most of you are like this. My lunches are similar. But these 2 spots, those are the places that I'm going wrong. And what you look at is the first thing you change is the most obvious glaring thing that is setting you off course. And then we kind of work on habits from there. The other thing that's going to allow you to do is see how much you are eating and what maintenance is. And this is where the work comes in. unless you hire me to do the work. So I said I wasn't going to do that. Is putting all that is when you put all of that stuff into a tracker or something and see where your calories are at. Most of us truly have no idea. We lie to ourselves when it comes to food. Most people underestimate what they consume. Not all. There's a subset of people that actually overestimates what they consume. So we take everything we've done for 3 or 5 days and we put that into something. It's like, here's where my maintenance is. Fairly simple. If we want to lose, we start with about 10% below that. If we want to gain, we start with about 10% above that. So what all of you are saying is, yeah, this is all interesting, but just please tell me what to do. Is that? And I'm going to say that learning it for yourself in terms of the long term is the difference between getting a temporary result and getting a long-term result. So we know we have to make changes, but we're not necessarily ready. Where does that begin? When I sit down with somebody and I'm about to start making modifications to their diet and triaging their diet, I say, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you are unwilling to give up? We all have them. You know, if you asked me prior to this prep, I would have been like red wine, chocolate, pizza. I cannot imagine a happy life without those things. Most of you are not getting on stage in 6 weeks in a sparkly bikini. And I'll tell you what, even though that is what I'm doing, I have managed to have some of those things over the past 20 weeks. You can achieve the results that you want and maintain those non-negotiables. The quantities may not be the same, the frequency might not be the same, but there should be nothing on the never list. I can never have this, I can never have that. And that is another reason why diets fail. There are things that were like, well, I never get to have pizza and I never get to have that. I don't know how often somebody tells me, I'm on keto, I never have carbs, I don't ever do that, but on the weekends I go out and I have a pizza. Well, you're not on keto then. But there should never be anything eliminated. It's about learning how to have those foods, enjoy them, not feel guilty about them, and have them in moderation. So I never encourage anybody to completely eliminate something. But again, that may look like having, a homemade pizza once every 2 weeks and not having it 3 nights a week. So easiest way to start doing this is going to be about limiting the number of variables. So when everything changes, it is so hard to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. So what I suggest in the beginning, making it fairly easy for shopping, for prepping, is if you have meals that you like, and most of you do, keep them absolutely consistent. So for us, the easy meals that we keep consistent is we eat the same breakfast every day, and then I have the ability to ratchet quantity up, down, based on needs. We have the same afternoon snack every day, and we have the same pre-bed. Right now, we're doing a casein protein pudding. What changes for me is generally a lunch, and then for dinner, I have a set of parameters where I'm like, I would like this much of a lean protein, this much of a complex carb, and this much of a vegetable. So if you want it to be relatively simple, we want to eliminate the places to make mistakes. Repetition is going to be your friend. And we want to eat things that we like. If you are talking about only getting a limited amount of food, if we are talking about losing body fat and an overall reduction in calories, why would you want to waste those calories on something that you don't like? So I'm going to stand here and give everybody permission not to eat foods that they don't like. If you're only getting, if it's 1,600 calories or 1,800 calories, fill that with foods that you like. And the best thing to do when we look at the pitfalls and hidden places, like where is it that we go wrong? I'm going to say it right here. Where we go wrong is lack of preparation and eating out. The same meal prepared at home, if you prepared a burger on your grill with lean beef, what your toppings are, made homemade fries or whatever it was, is going to be entirely different calorically, macro-wise, than getting that in a restaurant. You're not adding a bunch of fat. You know the substance that it was cooked in. So is really starting to do those things at home, which is scary and terrifying. And that is part of why the consistency of repetition is going to be helpful. You're like, I've got this. This breakfast is working for me. I'm going to give you my example of breakfast. It is a one bowl meal. I know I've shared it with many of you over time. It all goes in the microwave. I put a half a cup of oats, old-fashioned oats, 1 cup of egg whites, cinnamon, salt. You could sweeten to taste if you wanted to. I cook that for 3 minutes. It becomes like a souffle. I will share this with you guys after. And then on top, sometimes I put berries, nuts, natural nut butter. I could change what goes on top of that and the macros I want, but I literally eat that every day. I'm not saying eat it every day for the rest of your life, but when you're learning yourself, this is really all about learning yourself. So to me, that is the best way to have success, is just, here's what I do, I repeat this daily, and you start to really see where the errors are, and you start to see what you could add to, what you could subtract from, and when you have that meal, it will evolve over time. Let's say your lunch is this, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna swap out my carbohydrate source and try something, a small substitution like that. Who tracks in an app of any kind? What app do you use? MyFitnessPal. So the apps have tremendous value if you are using them correctly. And what I mean by that, scanning a barcode is great for the apps. Guess what? Most of the barcodes are on our processed foods, right? You can't scan the potato, you can't scan the apple. So I have seen people literally choose less healthy options for ease of tracking. It's like, well, I could just scan this bar. I'm supposed to measure an apple and nut butter and all of that other stuff. So that is one of the drawbacks of having an app. But if you are somebody that is more adventurous with food, that does not like eating the same thing all of the time, if you are going to do the work, they have an extreme amount of value. So what this all comes down to is having a plan. We fall off on this when we're ill-prepared. So I will tell you, this past week, we lost Lucy, and I wanted to blow the diet. I did not want to work out. I did not want to eat my meals. I wanted to eat junk food. I wanted to drink, and that is what I wanted to do. But we had a plan, and we found comfort in that plan. There was ritual and habit, and the nourishment was there. So rather than being dehydrated or also underfed, we knew exactly what it was going to be. We were going to still sit and have dinner together and have those habits and healthy rituals. So it sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But what I'm telling you, it is absolutely worth it. It really is planning and preparation. So we are all going to make mistakes. We are going to fall off. And it's about getting right back on. The problem is somebody is on a diet and they fall off the diet on Tuesday, and they're like, I'll just start again next Monday. And that happens all the time. Well, my diet's blown on Friday, so I guess the weekend is done. And the way we achieve long-term success with maintaining our results is getting right back on immediately. Don't punish yourself. Forgive yourself. Scott likes to use a word, nutrition amnesia. If you made a mistake, if you went out, and had too many wings and sliders and other stuff and had a really good time, the worst thing you could do the next morning is choose not to eat and punish yourself, because you end up in a repetitive cycle with that. So if you make a poor choice, your next meal is an opportunity. The next time you put something in your mouth is an opportunity to make a good choice, to be on the right path. Exercise forgiveness with yourself, and don't ever kick it out till Monday. If you're thinking about making changes, it starts now. For today, I am going to wrap up that concept there and open it up right now for questions. I will take questions from the group. After that, if anybody wants to stay with more individual questions, I will be around. We did not get very, very technical with details on nutrition today. If you do have those technical questions, please feel free to ask them.